my Chad folder. Go down here, and I think how far did we get yesterday? What did we leave on? Oh, of Oedipus Rex. Okay, all right. We're gonna start Friday with an Oedipus Rex story. Wow. All right. Does anybody know the story of Oedipus Rex? Nobody knows. Do you know? Yeah, Oedipus Rex. Rex means king, so King Oedipus. Right. Let's see. Is Oedipus Rex in this? Yeah, there he is. All right, everybody. Hey, this story takes place in there's three cities that are in the story. There's the city of Corinth, which is right there, the city of Thebes, and Delphi, which is our main concern because that's where the art is that we're going to look at. All right, so the story of Oedipus Rex. In the city of Thebes, we have King Laius and Queen Jocasta. They have a baby and they wonder what the future of their baby is going to be. So they go to Delphi. Remember, I told you that Delphi, that's where the oracle is. And they ask the oracle, hey, what's our baby going to do? Like, tell us about our baby. They want to ask the gods. And the oracle says that the baby is going to cause you problems. It's going to be the downfall of your kingship, your queenship, and Thebes. So, what do? If you have a baby that's going to grow up and just ruin everything, you got to kill the baby, right? So, they try to kill it, but you can't, like, just like with the city of Troy, if you're holding a baby, you can't just stab it. You're not a monster. So, you give it to somebody to kill, and they take it up to the top of the mountain. And this time, he bound the feet and the hands of the baby and left it at the top of the mountain. Meanwhile, a farmer, or a not a farmer, but a herdsman, a shepherd, finds the baby and names it Oedipus because I think the name Oedipus has something to do with bound feet, and takes it back to his city of Corinth. Now, in the city of Corinth, the king has a bunch of daughters but no sons. So he gives the baby to King Polybus to raise as a son so he can have an heir to leave his kingdom to. Years pass, Oedipus grows up and to be a fine young man, and there's a rumor going around that he's not the son of Polybus. And that really disturbs him because he grows up thinking that Polybus is his father. So he goes to Delphi. He asks the oracle, hey, is this rumor true? And the oracle says, you are destined to mate with your own mother and with your own hands shed the blood of your sire. That means you're going to marry your mother and kill your father. That freaks him out. It would freak anybody out. That's a horrible thing to learn that that's your fate. But he believes that this guy is his father and the queen is his mother. So he leaves Corinth and he goes to Thebes, where his actual mother and father are. But he doesn't know that. On his way to Thebes, he runs into a cart, not a cart, a wagon. All right, and there's some guys, and then an old guy in the wagon, and they are rude to him, and it starts a verbal altercation, and the verbal altercation turns into a fight, and during the fight, he kills the old man in self defense, of course. So that's part of his adventures on his way to Thebes. When he gets to Thebes, outside the gates, there's a sphinx, and it's not allowing anybody in or out of Thebes until they can solve the riddle of the sphinx. So if nobody can go in or out, that means you can't like trade with anybody. You can't bring food in. You can't take money out. You can't do anything. So it's a bad thing for Thebes to have this Sphinx stopping all commerce. So the Sphinx asks Oedipus what walks on four legs in the morning, two legs in the afternoon, and three legs at night. And Oedipus, quite a smart guy. He knows the answer. He figures out the answer, and he says, "Well, the answer is man. That in the morning, as a baby, he walks on four legs because he crawls. As in the afternoon, as an adult, he walks on two legs because he's a man. And in the evening, as an old man, he walks on three legs because he uses a cane." And that's the answer. So that lifts the curse on Thebes. So the reward for that is to marry Queen Jocasta, right? So he fulfills one half of his uh, 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 fate by marrying his mother. He doesn't even know she's his mother. She doesn't know he's her son. All right. By the way, they have children together. So he becomes king of Thebes, and he's a good king. He's a fair king. Everybody loves him. And after a while, there's a plague on Thebes, and he's really bothered by this, and he wants to know why there's a plague on Thebes. So he sends people to Delphi and to ask the gods, "Hey, why is there a plague on Thebes?" And the oracle says that the gods are angry because the murderer of the king has never been caught. Long story short, the old man that he killed on the crossroads on his way to Thebes was the king. It was his own father. So he had inadvertently killed his own father, and it inadvertently killed or married his own mother. So when the truth of this discovered, Queen Jocasta kills herself, and Oedipus gouges out his own eyes, and he and his family are exiled. And that is the story of Oedipus Rex. And so I tell you that story to kind of tell you the role of Delphi in this society. That if you have questions about what's going on, why is there a plague, why this, why that, you go to Delphi and you ask the oracle, and she will ask the gods. So then let's go to actual Delphi. Chase. So this is an aerial view of it. Right here are the ruins of the Apollo's temple at Delphi. Just behind it is the theater, and way up here, this is a stadium where they would have sporting events right here. And then this is the main entrance right here, and we're going to look at a structure that used to be right there. So yeah, that's the main entrance. That's the structure. There is Apollo's temple. That's the theater. That is the stadium, and then there is the Siphnian treasury. And that's kind of all that's left at the site. Other parts of it have been moved indoors to a museum. And really, the only parts that we're concerned about, or the parts that are left, is this part right here, which is called the frieze, and this part right here, which is the pediment. At the top, this is the pediment, and then here is the frieze. And this is a narrative. It tells a story, and it tells the story of the Gigantomachy. And by the way, it was polychromed. So I bet you're wondering, what the heck is a Gigantomachy? I am so glad you asked. So the Gigantomachy is basically a war between the gods and giants. These are the Olympian gods. You can see Zeus and Hera and Athena and Artemis And all of our favorite gods and goddesses are right here in this image. And the gods uh, were um, the force of order and good, even though they were very petty and stuff, but they kept order. Whereas the giants, 24 giants, were created to destroy the gods and create disorder and chaos in the world. And so the giants are trying to kill the gods are trying to kill the giants, and it's a huge war going on between them. Now, the gods are unable to kill these giants. And so then they ask, I think it's Hera. Hera comes up with a prophecy that the only way that the gods could win this war was by the help of a mortal dressed in lion skin. Does anybody know which mortal dresses in lion skin? Right. You know him as Hercules. That is his Roman name. His Greek name is Heracles. Since we're studying Greek art, we're going to call him Heracles. And so Heracles is recruited, and Heracles, the first thing he does is he shoots this giant right in the head with an arrow. And but then the giant stands up and rips that arrow right out of his head and carries on. He can't kill this guy. It turns out that the giants gained their strength by their contact with their homeland. So the giants are fighting in their homeland, and by touching the earth of the homeland, that's where they gain their strength. So what Heracles does is he pushes all the giants out of the homeland, and then he's able to kill them. And then what happens is then once all the giants are out of their homeland, then it becomes a Marvel superheroes Avengers superhero team up movie, and the gods are able to eventually beat the giants. Oh, here's a cool one right here. So this is Athena. She has this gigantic rock, and she crashes it down on one of the giants, uh, Enclatus, and that creates the island of Sicily. Now, your science teachers and history teachers are going to try to tell you that Sicily was created by Earth tectonics and erosion and that sort of thing, but that is a filthy lie, and I hope you tell your teachers that it was created by Athena. All right. So we want to look at this building right here, which tells the story of the Gigantomachy on the frieze that goes around on this part of um, uh, the building. So a frieze is basically a relief sculpture that is like a band around a building or a long band that is uh, a relief sculpture, that a narrative. I've already told you guys what relief sculpture means. You should know it. It might pop up on the test. Right? You should know the term gigantomachy, and you should know the term polychrome. Everybody's good with these terms? All right. The other new term I want to tell you is a caryatid, Karyatid, and that is a column in the shape of a woman, which is what we have here on the treasury, the Siphnian treasury. We'll see other caryatids in the near future. Now, the opposite of a caryatid is an atlantid. An atlantid is a male column in the shape of a woman. And look at the one on the left. What culture do you think this comes from? Yes. What makes you think it's Egypt? Yes, very yes. Right. And then he also has the crook and the flail. The one on the right, what culture do you think that comes from? I haven't yet taught you that culture. Somebody knew it in fifth period just because this is his what his beast is about. It's Aztec or Toltec. All right. So I've been showing you guys the archaic period, and there's a very interesting transition between the Archaic period and the Classical period, and that is with the Temple of Aphaea. All right, so this is a model of what the temple would have looked like a couple thousand years ago. I do want to point out a couple things. This is the pediment where all the sculptures are. Just below it, you can see the triglyphs. All right, and then in between the triglyphs are the metopies. And then what kind of columns do we see here? They're a Doric, right? How can you tell they're Doric? Right, the plain column. And what are they missing that the other columns have? The base. All right, and this is what the Temple of Aphaea looks like now. And if you look at the plan of the Temple of Aphaea, it's a little bit different than the other plan I showed you. It has two openings to the main cella that is in the center. And then on the inside cella, there are columns within the cella. And you can see that there are smaller columns. And then it's a single colonnade around the outside. But that's not why we're here. We're here to look at the pediment. So there are two pediments on a temple. There's one that faces east, one that faces west. The one that faces east, that is the main entrance. That is the front of the temple. And that is where the rituals are usually done. Why east? Why should it face east? What is significant about east? Right, the sunrise, right? It's a rebirth. It's showing the gods rising up. And with the Greeks, it is Apollo in his sun chariot coming up over the horizon. So one thing that is new is that all the figures are the same scale. That in order, so in the past, figures on a pediment would have just shrunk as they go out to the outside, but now they are all the same size. And in order to fit in this triangle, they have to squat down, they have to kneel down, and then in the corners they lie down. On the east pediment, it is this figure that we're going to be looking at. But what we have here is the story of the Trojan War. This guy right here is king of Troy. There's a couple of Trojans. We got a Greek warrior, and we got a hero of the Trojan War. There's Athena, the goddess of war, directing it all. And we have other Greeks and Trojans over here. And so the east pediment, we're going to look at this guy, and then on the west pediment, we're going to look at this guy. So when we compare these two sculptures, one of them is archaic, which I've taught you about, and one of them is classical. I haven't yet taught you about classical, but one of them is newer than the other. And what happened is that one of these sculptures fell off 10 years after it was made. So they made a new one and put it back up. And it has the characteristics of the new art style. So, can you tell which one is archaic? Why do you think the top one is archaic? Yeah, it's less detailed. It's uh, look at the hair. Does that hair look cartoonish to you? All right, and very abstract. And then look at his face. He's pulling an arrow out of his chest. Why is he smiling? It's the archaic smile. That's just what they did. All right. The other guy looks like he's suffering. He's dying. And then look at on the top one. Look at his leg. Like, isn't that a silly position of the leg if you're dying? Maybe you are thrashing around, but the one below looks a lot more natural than the one above. All right. So the one below is classical, and the one above is archaic. So this Temple of Aphaea is unusual because it has two different styles within one building. And then just for fun, we have they've done an ultraviolet scan of this and a microscopy, and then this is what they think it was painted like. You know, marble is such a beautiful stone. It's such a shame to cover it with garish paint. All right, are there any questions about anything I've discussed so far? All right, let me pull up the next slide show. All right, let's go run through the art museum. So we have just finished archaic, and now we're going to get into early classical. And we'll get into high classical, late classical, and Hellenistic in the near future. So we're going to look at the architecture first. Are we ready to move on? Let's. Oh, you know what I want to do? I want to. Oops. No, I don't want to do that. All right. So there, at this time, there's decades of war, and so war with whom? If it's called the Persian Wars, who are they fighting? Yeah, they're fighting Persia. And it's the end of the war, and they have decades of peace after the war. And this is the period of the best art and architecture of ancient Greece, as well as plays, writing, philosophy, and history. This is what is called the classical period. And d- during war, there's not much time to make art. There's not much time to write plays and other things of that sort. They're too busy making weapons and running off to fight. And also, it's a fight for survival. So when you're just trying to survive, you don't have time for luxuries. So all that is in red is the Persian Empire, and what is in green is the Greek nation or the Greek city states. And the Persian army in pink up here goes on land and around and down to fight with the Greeks. And the navy comes up from below and fights on these islands and invades Greece that way. But we're done with the war. Let's go to Olympia. What does the word Olympia sound like? Yes, the Olympics. The Greeks invented the Olympics. They began the Olympics. So it began in 776 BC. Representatives from each city state would compete to honor Zeus every Olympiad, every 4 years. And the Pausanias was a race to entertain the newborn Zeus. All right, and the Pindar is after Heracles finished his labors, he established a festival to honor the father, Zeus. And the Pelops won a chariot race through. So we'll talk about that in just a second. The first great monument of classical art is the site of the Olympic Games, and it's also one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. Is the statue of Zeus on the inside, and this is what the temple looks like nowadays. The temple is no longer there, but there is an identical temple over in Italy. It's the sister temple of the Temple of Zeus, and it's the Temple of Hera, and it's almost identical in every way. But it's the pediment that makes this important. So we're still with the Zeus, the Temple of Zeus at Olympia. On one side of the temple, the east pediment that faces the sun, is the chariot race. And then on the west pediment is the Centauromachy. So let's take a look at the Centauromachy. This is the complete pediment up here, and this is what is left of it. And this is placed in a museum. So anytime you go into a museum and you see these old ones, if it's arranged like a giant wide triangle, then you know that it comes from a pediment. So I bet you guys are wondering what the heck is a Centauromachy. We're going to do the chariot race first, though. All right. So in Greek art or in Greek mythology, what causes the most problems in Greek mythology? All right. The red part is hubris. The green part is fate or prophecy that couldn't be avoided. The black part is some god threw a hissy fit because a human was better than them, or the purple part, Zeus couldn't keep it in his pants. So on this story, it's a fate or prophecy that could not be avoided. So we're going to start the story with Hippodamia and Oenomaus. Oenomaus. And so we have a king and his daughter, the princess. The king goes to the oracle and says, "Oh, wise oracle, tell me the future." And she says, "You will be killed by your son in law. He only has one daughter." So, what does that mean? So, Hippodamia is of the age where she is able to marry, and there's lots of suitors that are interested in her. So, how does he keep her from getting married? Here's how he keeps her from getting married. So, a suitor comes to him and says, "I want to marry your daughter." Whoops, it says, "I want to marry your daughter." He says, "Okay, but first, you have to beat me in a chariot race. And if you lose, you die." So, they go in the chariot race, and he cheats every time. All right. And he puts the head of the loser up on a stake to warn other people that want to marry his daughter not to try. So Hippodamia falls in love with Pelops, and this is the guy that she wants to marry. And so she decides to, yeah, right. So she decides to sabotage the her father's chariot during the race and make it so that he wins. So the chariot just falls apart, and her father dies in the wreck, and then she is able to marry her father. I don't have a joke for this. I'll think of one later. So then Pelops organizes chariot races as a thanksgiving to the gods and as a funeral to honor the king that just died that he was a part of. And it was from this funeral race that the held at the Olympia that the beginnings of the ancient Olympic Games were inspired. So Pelops becomes a great king, a local hero, and Peloponnese, or the Peloponnesian Peninsula, is named after Peplops or Peplos. All right, so then let's take a look at the chariot race side of the pediment. So we have Zeus in the center, all right, Pelops, Hippodamia, whom he married, Oenomaus, that's the king, and then on the other side of, is that where? So no, this takes place before the race, and everybody is calm. But one thing we want to point out is this dude right here. All right, if we get a closer look at him, everybody's calm except for this guy, and he is a seer. He knows the future, and so this is rare for somebody of his age to be shown in art. Usually, you have somebody that is young in art, but the inclusion of a beard shows old age and wisdom. But he knows what's going to happen at the race. He knows that the king is going to die. And also, if you look at his face, we no longer have the archaic smile. So, this is the end of the archaic smile. On the other side of the temple, we have the Centauromachy. So, the story of the Centauromachy goes something like this: Apollo falls in love with Stilbe. She is a nymph, and she is the daughter of the river god Peneus. They have two children. Lapithes is very handsome and very strong and very intelligent and a general great guy. He's a hero. Centaurus is deformed and a bit simple, and so he is uh, un, he's very unattractive. And Centaurus really loves women, but women are absolutely repulsed by him. So if you can't get a woman to be your girlfriend, then the next best thing, I guess, is a horse. And this is where centaurs come from. All right, now, Centaurus goes on to breed a whole race of centaurs. Lapithes goes on to breed a whole race of lapiths. Very beautiful, very healthy, very strong culture of people. Now, Centaurus and Lapithes are brothers, so they are family. There is a Lapith wedding. At a wedding, you have to invite family, right? So they invited the centaurs. Now, at the wedding, what do you usually have at weddings? Is you have wine at weddings. It's a celebration. This is the first time that centaurs have ever had wine. How do you think they behaved? Yeah, they caused problems. All right, so the centaurs caused a problem at the wedding. In fact, they tried to make off with all the women at the wedding. And so when they tried to get handsy with the women, all the Lapith men started beating up the centaurs. So there's a massive fight at the wedding. And that, my friends, is a Centauromachy. So here we have an image of the Centauromachy. Here is a centaur grabbing a woman and trying to take her over here. We have another centaur who's trying to grab a woman and she is pushing him away. We'll get close ups of these. And I put this picture in to show you just how large these images are, or how large these sculptures are. Here's another size comparison right here. There's a close up view of Apollo, maybe. Here we go. She's giving him an elbow to the face. She's fighting back. He's getting handsy. You can see where his hands are. That's inappropriate. And she is fighting back. She has her arms pushing his face away as he comes onto her. And down here, they are struggling to get away from each other. All right, now, so remember metopes. These are the metopes of the Temple of Zeus at Olympia. And in the metopes, we have the story uh, of Heracles and the 12 labors. So the west porch has 6, and the east porch has 6. And I'm wondering if I can fit in. We have 7 minutes to do. All right, let's try to do this. All right, the story of Heracles. All right, so Zeus falls in love with literally everything and anything. I've shown you guys the list of Zeus's partners. That makes Hera very angry. So he tries to disguise himself every time he has one of these affairs. So this time he falls in love with Alcmene. She is the queen of Amphitryon. Amphitryon is a warrior king, and Amphitryon is away at war. So he disguises himself as Amphitryon, and she says, "Well, I wasn't expecting you. I mean, you're home. Aren't you supposed to be fighting right now?" And he says, "I came home early for you." And then the very next day, the real Amphitryon shows up, and she says, "You were just here yesterday." And so Zeus has sex with her, and her husband has sex with her. So, and she gets pregnant, and she's having twins. One of those twins is Zeus's, and one of those twins is her husband's. All right, and so the first great grandson of Perseus will become the king of Mycenae. Mycenae. So Hera arranges it so that Eurystheus, the twin of Heracles, is born first. And it was supposed to be Heracles that was supposed to be born first. And so, and she realizes, Alcmene knows that having Heracles will be chaotic for her home. It will be best if Heracles grows up in another family. So she places a baby on a walking trail in a forest. Somebody will come by and help the baby. So Hera and Athena are walking by and they see the baby and they say, "Oh, what a cute baby." And they pick up the baby and Hera nurses the baby. So Heracles, the spawn of her wayward husband, is nursing from her. And also, Heracles is getting a god's milk. So that makes him even stronger. That gives him more vigor. And they're very impressed by him that he is. So Athena gives him courage, Hera gives him strength, and then but he sucks so hard that it causes her pain. It's causing her, a goddess, pain. So she pulls him away. It spurts so much that it causes the Milky Way. So at night, and especially out in the country, if you look out of the sky, you can see the Milky Way. Now, your science teacher is going to try to tell you that that's part of the galaxy that you're looking from. But no, that's the mother from the or the milk from the breast of Hera. Anyways, they figure out that this is the spawn of Zeus, and Hera becomes really angry. She is absolutely furious that she's kind of been tricked into this. And so Heracles eventually grows up. He's a hero and he marries Megara and he has children. Hera still hates him. And so she puts a spell on him that causes him to go insane. So he thinks he's fighting monsters when really it's his family that he's fighting. And when he comes out of a spell, he has killed his wife and his children. So he's feeling very sad. He goes to the Delphi and he asks the Delphi what he can do to feel better. So she tells him to go and serve his cousin, King Eurystheus, for 10 years and performing whatever tasks he asks of you. And so uh, Eurystheus hates Heracles and he wants to give him tasks that'll make him that are impossible for him to complete or that will eventually kill him. And I'm going to stop there for today. and then we'll start with the 12 labors on Monday.